You stand at the edge of a world you thought you knew, a world meticulously constructed, sold to you piece by piece, belief by belief. And yet, a tremor runs through its foundations, a dissonant chord in its well-rehearsed symphony. This is the first stirring, the initial undeniable stage of profound discontent. It's not a fleeting sadness, not a simple dissatisfaction with your circumstances. It is the soul's primal roar against the confines of a life too small, a reality too thin. It is the ancient ache for something more, something real, a yearning that gnaws at the core of your being, whispering that the feast laid before you is made of dust and shadows. This is the sacred wound, the splinter in your heart that refuses to let you sleepwalk any longer, the divine irritation that signals the end of your allegiance to the superficial. You were told this unease was a problem to be medicated, a flaw to be corrected. But it is, in truth, the clarion call to a journey of unfathomable depth, the first raw signal that your spirit is breaking free from its self-imposed, societally reinforced chrysalis. From this crucible of yearning, the second phase ignites, the relentless, desperate quest. You begin to question, not timidly, not politely, but with the ferocity of a prisoner rattling the bars of their cage. Every accepted truth, every inherited dogma, every societal commandment is dragged into the harsh light of your burgeoning awareness. What is this life for? Whose values am I living by? Is this job, this relationship, this belief system an expression of my deepest self, or a costume I was handed? This stage is an intellectual and spiritual insurgency. You devour knowledge, you seek out forgotten lore. You listen to the whispers of heretics and mystics, those who dare to chart their own course beyond the sanctioned maps. Your mindset becomes the battleground. The old architecture of your thoughts, built on fear and conformity, begins to crumble. Each question is a hammer blow, each doubt a crack of light in a darkened room. The comfort of certainty is sacrificed at the altar of truth. This is not just learning. It is an excavation, digging through layers of conditioning to find the bedrock of your own untainted perception. The digital noise of the modern world, with its endless stream of curated realities and manufactured outrage, becomes a torment because you are now listening for a different frequency, the subtle signal of your own awakening intuition. And as the questions dismantle the old world, your perception undergoes a radical, often terrifying, metamorphosis. This is the third dawn, the stage where the veils begin to lift. Suddenly, the mundane is shot through with a strange significance. The patterns, the synchronicities, the hidden currents that move beneath the surface of everyday life become undeniably apparent. You start to see the strings, the invisible architecture of control and influence that shapes the consensus reality. It's like waking from a lifelong dream to realize the dream was being directed by unseen hands. You see the fear in people's eyes, the desperation behind their bravado, the unspoken hunger for connection that drives their often destructive behaviors. This newfound clarity is both exhilarating and deeply isolating. The world you once navigated with blind confidence now appears as a complex, often tragic, play of illusions. Historical narratives, societal structures, even the intimate dynamics of your personal relationships are recontextualized through this lens of awakening. The heroes of yesterday might appear as villains, the villains as victims, the sacred texts as tools of control, or, conversely, as coded maps to liberation. This is the stage of seeing the invisible, of recognizing the subtle energies and unspoken agendas that weave through human affairs. You begin to understand that reality is not a fixed, objective thing, but a fluid, participatory experience, shaped by consciousness itself. And the most profound and initially most unsettling realization of this phase is that your own perception has been a key player in co-creating the limitations you once accepted as fate. The cage was, in many ways, an inside job. This dawning awareness naturally ushers in the fourth critical passage, the confrontation with your own shadow. As the light of your consciousness expands, it inevitably illuminates the darkened corners of your own psyche, the denied fears, the repressed traumas, the unloved aspects of your being, the internalized oppressor that mimics the voices of your past. This is no gentle introspection. It is a descent into the abyss, a terrifying encounter with everything you have run from. The resistance is immense. The ego, that carefully constructed sense of self, fights for its survival, for it knows its reign is threatened. This stage is often the dark night of the soul, a period of intense inner turmoil, despair, and the feeling of being utterly lost, stripped bare of all familiar comforts and identities. It feels like death, because a part of you is dying. The false self, the conditioned persona, the collection of masks you wore to navigate a sleeping world. Many turn back here, unable to bear the intensity of this self-confrontation, seeking solace in old comforts, old illusions. But for those who endure, for those who find the courage to sit with their demons without flinching, this descent is the necessary prelude to an authentic rebirth. You realize that the monsters in your basement were merely frightened children, parts of you longing for acceptance and integration. It is here, in the acceptance of your own totality, light and dark, that the foundations of an unshakable inner strength begin to form. The power you sought externally starts to stir from within, forged in the fires of this profound self-acceptance. You learn that true invincibility isn't the absence of wounds, but the courage to embrace them as portals to deeper understanding and compassion. This is where the warrior spirit is truly tempered, not in aggression towards others, but in the unwavering gaze into the depths of one's own soul. This is where the warrior spirit is truly tempered, not in aggression towards others, but in the unwavering gaze into the depths of one's own soul. And from these ashes of egoic death, from this harrowing pilgrimage through your own internal underworld, something new, something unbreakable begins to rise. This is the fifth great unfolding, the discovery of authentic power. Not the brutal, coercive force the world so often mistakes for strength, not the fleeting authority granted by titles or wealth, but the silent, indomitable power that comes from aligning with your deepest truth. The power of a soul that has faced its own annihilation and chosen to live. You realize that the universe does not respond to your pleas or your demands, but to the vibration of your being, to the clarity of your intent, to the courage of your authenticity. This power is subtle, yet it can move mountains. It is the power to say no to what violates your spirit, and yes to what makes it soar. It is the power to create your reality, not through force, but through conscious alignment and fearless self-expression. The historical figures who truly changed the world, not the conquerors, but the mystics, the artists, the philosophers who expanded human consciousness, wielded this very power. They understood that true dominion is not over others, but over oneself, over one's own mind, one's own reactions, one's own creative energy. This is the stage where you stop asking for permission and start granting it to yourself. You realize you are not a victim of circumstance, but a potent co-creator, a spark of the divine fire, capable of shaping your experience from the inside out. The shackles of learned helplessness, so carefully placed upon you by a fearful world, begin to rust and fall away. With this dawning of inner power comes the sixth inevitable passage, the cultivation of radical self-reliance. The props are gone. The external authorities you once looked to for answers, for validation, for salvation, are revealed as fallible, often deeply flawed, reflections of the very system you are transcending. Teachers may point the way, guides may offer maps, but you are the one who must walk the path. This stage can be profoundly lonely, for you are stepping off the well-trodden roads of collective belief. Your journey becomes unique, your insights tailored to your specific soul curriculum. The comforting chorus of the crowd fades, replaced by the often unsettling symphony of your own inner voice, your reawakened intuition. This is your true north, your infallible compass. Learning to trust it, to discern its subtle whispers from the clamor of fear or desire, becomes your primary practice. You become a spiritual minimalist, shedding dependencies, expectations, and the need for external approval as if they were heavy cloaks on a summer's day. Consider the lone explorers charting unknown continents, the scientists challenging established paradigms in the face of ridicule, the artists daring to express visions the world was not yet ready to see. Their strength was not in numbers, but in the unwavering conviction of their inner knowing. This self-reliance is not an arrogant isolation, but a profound recognition of your own completeness, your inherent capacity to access the wisdom of the universe directly. It is the quiet dignity of a soul that stands on its own foundation, drawing sustenance from the deep wellspring of its own being. You become your own sanctuary, your own oracle, your own unwavering ally in a world that often seeks to diminish your light. And as your perception sharpens, as your reliance on self solidifies, you move into the seventh crucial awakening, the clear, unclouded recognition of manipulation in its myriad forms. Having extricated yourself from the grosser forms of your own self-deception, you become acutely sensitive to the subtle and overt ways consciousness is steered, controlled, and exploited in the external world. This is not about succumbing to paranoia, it is about cultivating supreme discernment. You see the hooks in the narrative spun by media, the emotional blackmail in personal relationships, the fear-mongering in political discourse, the manufactured desires instilled by consumer culture. It's like developing an entirely new sense, one that detects the invisible currents of agenda and intent. You see how language is weaponized, how symbols are used to evoke programmed responses, how history is rewritten to serve the interests of the powerful. The bread and circuses of the Roman Empire have evolved into the sophisticated psychological operations of the digital age, where your attention is the currency and your behavior is the product. This stage is not about fighting the manipulators, for that is to become entangled in their game. It is about understanding their tactics so thoroughly that they lose all power over you. It is about becoming so rooted in your own authenticity, so clear in your own energetic sovereignty, that their attempts to sway or deceive simply find no purchase. You learn to navigate these treacherous waters with grace and precision, like a skilled mariner reading the hidden currents and avoiding the whirlpools. This clarity is a profound liberation, for it allows you to engage with the world consciously, to make choices free from undue influence, to protect your sacred inner space from the incessant bombardment of external programming. You become a beacon of awareness not by preaching, but by simply being impervious to the illusions that ensnare so many. Your very presence becomes a quiet act of defiance against the forces that seek to keep humanity asleep. Your very presence becomes a quiet act of defiance against the forces that seek to keep humanity asleep. And as the cacophony of external deceptions loses its grip, you are drawn inexorably into the eighth sanctuary, the profound, transformative power of silence. Not merely the absence of noise, but the deliberate cultivation of an inner stillness so deep it becomes a resonant chamber for truth. The world is terrified of silence. It is in silence that the carefully constructed narratives shatter. It is in silence that the voice of the soul, long drowned out by the relentless din of distraction and demand, can finally be heard. This stage is a retreat, not from life, but into the very heart of life, into the generative quiet from which all authentic creation springs. You find yourself seeking solitude, not as an escape, but as a pilgrimage. In these sacred stretches of quietude, the frantic machinations of the ego begin to settle, like sediment in a still pool, revealing the crystal clarity of the water beneath. This is where your intuition, once a whisper, becomes a clear, unwavering voice. Insights that once eluded you in the chaos now arrive with effortless grace. You begin to perceive the subtle symphony of the universe, the interconnectedness of all things, a reality that can only be apprehended when the analytical mind steps aside. Consider the ancient mystics, the desert fathers and mothers, the yogis in their mountain caves. They were not fleeing the world. They were diving into its core, seeking the silence where the divine speaks. In this modern age, to actively choose silence, to carve out spaces for deep listening amidst the relentless digital barrage, is one of the most revolutionary acts you can undertake. It is in this stillness that you recalibrate your being, that you disentangle from the collective psychosis, and that you touch the timeless, formless essence of who you truly are. This communion with silence naturally fortifies the ninth bastion of your awakening, unbreakable spiritual discipline. Awakening is not a passive drift into bliss. It is an active, often arduous, forging of a new consciousness. And this forging requires a will of tempered steel, a commitment that does not waver when the path grows dark or the old comforts call. This is not the rigid, joyless discipline of blind obedience to external rules. No, this is the self-imposed, soul-aligned discipline of the spiritual warrior, the conscious choice to consistently align your thoughts, words, and actions with your deepest understanding of truth. It is the discipline to meditate when the mind rebels, to question when complacency beckons, to choose love when fear screams, to speak your truth when silence would be easier but complicit. It is the rigorous honesty to examine your own motives, to catch the subtle resurgence of egoic patterns, to take responsibility for the energy you bring into every interaction. The modern world sells a fantasy of effortless transformation, of quick fixes and spiritual bypasses. But the ancient paths, the ones that lead to genuine liberation, have always emphasized the necessity of sustained effort, of consistent practice, of unwavering dedication. Think of the artisan honing their craft over decades, the athlete pushing their body beyond perceived limits, the scholar dedicating a lifetime to the pursuit of knowledge. Spiritual discipline is this, and more. It is the art of sculpting your own consciousness, of refining your own energetic signature, of becoming a living embodiment of your highest potential. It is the daily, hourly, moment-by-moment choice to turn towards the light, even when the shadows loom large. This discipline is not a burden. It is the framework that allows your freedom to truly take flight, the bedrock upon which a resilient and integrated awakening is built. Without it, insights remain fleeting, and transformation remains a distant dream. And as you walk this path of silence and discipline, as your inner world becomes increasingly your point of reference, the 10th great liberation begins to unfold, the profound peace of detachment. This is perhaps one of the most misunderstood stages. It is not apathy, not a cold withdrawal from life, not an emotional numbness. Far from it. It is the release of your addiction to outcomes, the severing of your clinging to specific forms, the untangling of your identity from the ever-changing drama of the external world. You begin to understand, on a cellular level, the impermanent nature of all things. Your thoughts, your emotions, your possessions, your relationships, even your physical body. This understanding does not lead to despair, but to an incredible sense of freedom. You realize that your true essence is not defined by any of these transient phenomena. You are the witness, the silent, aware presence that observes the play of life without being consumed by it. You still feel deeply, you still love profoundly, you still engage with the world, but you are no longer a puppet danced by the strings of hope and fear. The desperate need for things to be a certain way, the anxiety that fuels so much human suffering, begins to dissolve. You learn to hold your desires lightly, to act with passion and purpose, but to surrender the results to a wisdom far greater than your individual ego. Think of a mighty river flowing to the sea. It encounters obstacles, it changes course, but its essential nature remains, and its journey is inexorable. Detachment allows you to become like that river, flowing with life, adapting to its twists and turns without losing your intrinsic direction or peace. The frantic urgency of the ego gives way to a patient, trusting rhythm. You are in the world, but no longer of it in the same way. Your joy is no longer contingent on external conditions, but arises from the deep wellspring of your own being, independent of praise or blame, success or failure. This is the beginning of unshakable inner peace, the quiet joy of a soul that has found its true anchor beyond the storms of worldly existence. This is the beginning of unshakable inner peace, the quiet joy of a soul that has found its true anchor beyond the storms of worldly existence. This profound detachment, this 10th great unfolding, is not a disengagement from humanity, but a deeper engagement from a place of unassailable wholeness. You become a lighthouse, not trying to calm the storm, but shining your unwavering light so others might navigate their own tempests. The desperate clinging to personal narratives, to identities built on past achievements or future hopes, finally loosens its grip entirely. You realize these were merely costumes worn by the infinite self, roles played in the grand cosmic drama. And in letting them go, you do not become less. You become immeasurably more. You become the space through which life flows, unrestricted, unburdened. The fear of loss, which is the root of so much human suffering, withers in the face of this understanding. For what can be truly lost when your identity is no longer tethered to the transient, but rooted in the eternal? This is the stage where the heart breaks open, not in sorrow, but in an explosion of compassion for all beings, still caught in the nets of illusion, still suffering under the weight of their attachments. Your personal pain, once a source of anguish, is transmuted into a profound empathy, a catalyst for service born not of obligation, but of an overflowing, unconditional love. From this unshakable foundation of detachment and compassion, the 11th radiant dawn emerges, the full embodiment of your authentic self, living in conscious co-creation with the universe. The masks are gone, the pretenses have dissolved. What remains is the raw, unfiltered, magnificent truth of who you are, a unique emanation of the divine, a sovereign being of light and power. You no longer seek to fit in, for you understand that your uniqueness is your sacred offering to the world. Your words carry weight, not because of aggression, but because they are aligned with the unwavering frequency of truth. Your actions create ripples, not because you seek to impose your will, but because you move in harmony with the universal flow, guided by an intuition that is now as clear and reliable as the rising sun. Synchronicities become the language of your life, the universe constantly affirming your path, opening doors, bringing forth the people and resources you need, precisely when you need them. This is not magic in the childish sense, but the natural consequence of living in a state of profound energetic alignment. You realize that you are a conduit, a channel through which the creative intelligence of the cosmos expresses itself. Your life becomes a masterpiece, not because it is free of challenges, but because you meet every challenge with grace, wisdom, and an unshakable trust in the greater unfolding. The old anxieties about the future, the lingering regrets about the past, are consumed by the vibrant intensity of the present moment, the eternal now, which you recognize as the only point of true power, the only place where life truly is. And so we arrive at the 12th great horizon, the summit and the new beginning, the ultimate spiritual victory. This is not the conquest of an external enemy, not the acquisition of worldly power, but the absolute, unequivocal liberation of the self from the tyranny of illusion. It is the full, blazing realization of oneness, the lived, breathed, experienced understanding that you are not separate from anything or anyone, that you are an integral, inseparable part of the infinite tapestry of existence, a wave in the boundless ocean of consciousness. The boundaries of the ego, once so fiercely defended, dissolve into the radiant light of universal awareness. Unconditional love ceases to be an ideal and becomes the very air you breathe, the very ground you walk upon. Compassion flows effortlessly, for in every face you see your own. Wisdom is not something you possess, but something that moves through you. This is the state of enlightenment, not as a static destination, but as a dynamic, ever-expanding dance with the infinite. The war within is over. The search has ended, not because all questions are answered, but because you have become comfortable living within the magnificent mystery. The peace that surpasses all understanding is no longer a distant promise, but your constant companion. You are a sovereign being, yet you are utterly surrendered to the divine will. You are an individual spark, yet you are the entire cosmos. This is the ultimate awakening. This is your birthright. This is the call that has echoed in your soul through lifetimes of forgetting and remembering. The path is arduous, fraught with peril and illusion, demanding everything of you. It will break you, dismantle you, strip you bare, until only the indestructible diamond of your true essence remains. But the promise is not just peace, not just freedom, but the reclamation of your divine inheritance, the power to transform not only your own life, but to become a catalyst for the awakening of the world itself. Do not turn away from the discontent. Do not shrink from the darkness. Do not seek solace in the comfortable lies any longer. The battlefield for the soul of humanity is not out there in the headlines or the political arenas. It is within you. The greatest act of service you can offer a sleeping world is to awaken, to embody this truth, to radiate this love, to live with this courage. The time for hesitation is over. The universe is calling you to rise, to remember who you are, and to claim the glorious victory that has always, always been yours. Step into the fire, become the light. The journey is everything, and it begins now.